I just recently seen Solo. I think it was the night before the actual official opening night. As I said before in a prior video, I went and was kind of dismayed by the fact that there was hardly nobody in the theater. Although I acknowledge that, unlike the early movies when I first started going as a kid, which were packed, and sometimes you'd have to wait in line for half a day to get in for in the first couple months, or even months, but first couple weeks showing for sure. Solo, on the other hand, opening in just the theater that I went to alone, they had 3 different theaters devoted to it, or 3 different movies or screens, whatever the hell you want to call it, devoted to it, and then had probably 5 showings, 4 showings each day per screen. So the fact that there was only about 20 people in there was not totally surprising, and I went in there early afternoon, the first showing, because I had a moment between jobs to kill. So one of the things that they strove to rectify or clarify was Han Solo's ability to shoot first. This put, if you go back to the original Star Wars movie and the Cantina, before the remastered version, before they edited it and they added a bunch of stuff from CGI, the shot, or the part where he's meeting with Guido in the Cantina, and Guido confronts him, and it appears that Han fires first. And he shoots Guido, not necessarily in cold blood, but he does shoot him. And in the original take, we do not see Guido's shot. So Guido never actually gets off a shot. That's remastered and added later to, I don't know, to change the appearance that Han Solo is the type to shoot first and ask questions later, as opposed to just defending himself. Well, in the new movie Solo, we see that he outright shoots Beckett in the chest with a lethal intent, kills him, and Beckett's proud of him for it. Now, there's a lot of people that may or may not see that as a good thing, especially in the light of today's social issues with gun violence. Now, how does this affect the character of Han Solo? He's this swashbuckling, freelance, independent, rogue type rebel who does his own thing for his own reasons. The ultimate mercenary to some degree. But he's also recognized as the anti-hero, or the reluctant hero, however you want to look at it, the redeemable scoundrel. And that was one of the things that made him a beloved character. So having him be a cold-blooded murderer or a cold-blooded killer changes the vibe of the character to some degree. And yet it doesn't. Now, in a recent dialogue on another video, I've been accused of having the tendency to be all over the place when it comes to my opinions on things. And there's a good reason for that. I agree and disagreed, and I disagree to agree and agree to disagree on a lot of different subjects or points in the subject, and could take both sides at certain points along the way. This may make it seem like I leap from side to side or waffle back and forth, and that's not true. Not if you really listen to what's being said or the intent behind what's being said. So, Han Solo is raised as an orphan on the streets of Corellia, an industrial world. He's in an environment where it's dog eat dog, in some cases literally alien eating alien, where you need to be able to not only defend yourself, but project an era of compatibility, of being competent enough to defend yourself, and make the other. It's more important for the other people to think you're more than capable of shooting them if necessary to more or less keep your way. Now, does Han Solo go out of his way to go around shooting people to get what he wants? There's no evidence in any of the movies or any of the books, including the recent Solo, that that's the type of character he is. So he's not your cold-blooded murder type. He's not an assassin for hire. He's not a gunman per se. Yet he does follow, just like the parts of the movie follows, that Old West vibe, that Old West formula. So he is a cowboy, if you will. He's not a gunslinger, and yet we see evidence in a number of the novels, especially the really old novels, where Han Solo does do that meet at high noon thing, where there's I can't think of the name off the top of my head. The novelette where Han Solo it goes to the corporate sector and he has to go rescue Chewbacca from the corporate sector's high-end, high-tech penal installation, and in the process just manages to destroy it by blowing it halfway into orbit. There's a scene in there where he goes up against the lizard aliens, the bodyguard of the head corporate director, and they have they basically have a shootout, and Han wins. And Han wins not only because he's capable and good at what he does, but because he also is a little bit on the side of chicanery. Win or lose, there's no such thing as a fair fight. That's something that an uncle of mine beat into my head when I was a young man. At the end of the day, the only thing that's fair is your opponent's on the ground and you're not. And it may not seem that way to other people's eyes, or at the time. At the end, it doesn't matter. The truth is, put the other guy down, put him down fast, put him down hard. The sooner down, the better. Because the longer a fight goes, the more likely it's going to be you on the losing end of it. And that's the philosophy of my Uncle Buck. And he was a two-tour Vietnam vet, and had good reasons for having that mindset. So Han Solo also has a good reason for having the mindset that he does. To the willingness to shoot first, and especially out of self-preservation. He realized he was in a situation where he had probably seen this happen, or seen I equate this to to a person who's grown up with a whole slew of movies. I'm a big fan of the post-apocalyptic scenarios, the end of the world kind of stuff, and I've watched the TV series, the movies, I've read loads and loads of books. And you see these types, these personality types who arise in these scenarios, and they cause nothing but problems, chaos, hate, discontent, and risk the lives of the main characters, sometimes to their death. So, I've always said, if I was in that scenario where the end of the world took place, and I saw that certain type of person, that alpha type personality who thinks they're going to be top dog because they're going to somehow bully their way, or muscle their way, or intimidate their way into getting things done their way, or allowing them or making them the leader because they think they got that right to do so, I would have no qualms of shooting this person in the back of the head at the first opportunity. And in my mind, I would look at anybody who would look at me like, oh my God, why did you do that? Fred is dead. I would say, look, I've seen that movie a dozen times. It doesn't end well for anybody. Better for Fred to be dead than the rest of us. If that makes me a bad guy, so be it. So Han Solo is that type of personality at this point in his life. He has to look out for himself. Preservation is number one. And we see this mindset early on in his life. And the only person he cared about was the character Kira, which in the original novels and stuff, she doesn't exist. He does have a love interest in the Legends version of his backstory, and I'm not going to debate that here or there. So the Kira is a substitute, a surrogate for the love interest that occurred in his legend, his early legend books. Fine with that. But after he determines or discovers that she's gone her own way, that he spent a lot of his time trying to do the right thing by her, to get back to her, to save her, to quote, save her. He finds that she saved herself by going with the machine, going with the the plan at the time. She stayed in. She stayed in with the syndicate, the mob, the life, and she embraced it. She embraced it as her own method of survival. It's her way of shooting first, if you will. So he comes to terms with it, or tries to come to terms. They do a very poor job of showing that part. It's considered the Han Solo character type to be the lackadaisy, shrug it off, go forward with life kind of personality, and not get bogged down in over semantics on of relationship issues and his personal feelings. Which there's a point in time for it, and then there's at least giving a wink and a nod to it. It's one of those things that in a sidebar that I find terribly, terribly disgusting in the second movie of the new trilogy, or the first movie of the new trilogy, when Han is cut down by his son, and we see almost no grieving on the part of Chewbacca or Luke. We see grieving from Leia, and that's the extent of it. And even then, it was very short-lived. Oh well, Han's dead. Everybody's relieved in some aspects that the character finally got. The character actor finally got his wish, and the character's dead. And I have problems with that on many levels, but that's not what this video is about. So, does Han Solo have that killer instinct to shoot first and ask questions later? Absolutely. And is he justified for doing so? Absolutely. Like I said, he grew up in an extreme environment. He went into a career path which, he tried to do the honest career path. He did join the Imperial Navy, and then through a series of misadventures that are very poorly touched upon in the movie itself, he's kicked out of the academy. And in the movie, in the new canon, apparently he somehow or another joins the army, or the Stormtrooper Corps, which I have, arguments amongst associates about that. I disagree that it's the Stormtrooper, as in the Stormtrooper Corps, as in the elite clone-based Stormtroopers. I think that that's the Imperial Army, and every evidence of the game system and some of the old books from Legends show that the Empire has an army. You have a grand army of the Republic, and it's not all Stormtroopers. So to have normal people or normal aliens in combat gear in battle is not unheard of or unreasonable. And the fact that the armor shows some distinct differences from Stormtrooper armor of any class, any age, backs that up. As a matter of fact, to some degree, when I first saw the young Han in his military issue mud armor, if you will, one of the first things that come to my head was the fact that, was Denninger, the mercenary. He wears a identical type of armor, minus the helmet. So it shows, a connectivity there to some degree. So I have no problems with Han shooting first. Even up to the cantina scene in the original movie, I never had a problem with him shooting first. He's in a dangerous environment. He's got a price on his head. He knows people are gunning for him, and he's got to defend himself. And he knows in his head, he's seen that movie. He's seen that type. He's seen Guido's type over and over. He probably even knows of Guido because of their association through the Hutt cartel. Knows that Guido is a type to shoot first if given an opportunity. So Han preempts the opportunity in a sense of self-preservation. That's what that's about. And that's my 5 cents on the subject.